enough is enough and too much is too much. You, me, together, we have the moral and religious responsibility to respond.
I have been clear since October 7th, and I'm clearer today. Hamas must be destroyed and every hostage must come home.
I stand with you, and I am proud to stand with you, and I will stand with you until this is wiped out.
I will not remain silent.
If we role model what we want, and we speak with one voice in a unified way, we can change this in a generation.
The real true voice.
Tonight on Merit TV, we bring you Never Again Is Now, a discussion with Dr. Phil, New York City Mayor Eric Adams, and Jewish leaders. In this powerful special, Dr. Phil and Mayor Adams are confronting the alarming rise of anti-Semitic hate that is sweeping across our nation and New York. Mayor Adams has taken a bold stand by adopting the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism and is calling for its legal recognition, showing what real leadership looks like in confronting hate.
From today forward, the entire Adams administration will use the IRA working definition to identify and address incidents of anti-Semitism across the city, as well as to raise the awareness of this crisis. Lives are at stake, and we have no time to lose.
Join us as Dr. Phil, Mayor Adams, and Jewish community leaders explore the urgent question: are we finally ready to define and combat anti-Semitism, or are we risking history repeating itself? From city halls and college campuses to synagogues and families, this is a critical conversation about courage, community, and the fight for justice. It's time to listen, reflect, and take action.
My name is Aryeh Borkoff. I wanted to welcome everyone tonight to this very momentous gathering. And it's beautiful to see everyone coming here on short notice. Where there is war and conflict, there are also preparations for peace. And that's what we're here to focus on tonight. Our friend, Dr. Phil McGraw, has graced us with his presence tonight. And not only his presence here tonight, but his outspoken language at such a critical moment for all of us. Dr. Phil's been a friend for a long time and a media personality, and he's not afraid to speak up for what's right and wrong. He says, among other things, when you're confronted with a problem, you have three choices. You could remove yourself, you can accept it, or you can be part of the change and change it. And we're here all tonight to be part of the change. And the mayor, who's also graced us, I remember fondly after October 7th when I was in Israel. 3 days later, the mayor gave a speech I think in Bryant Park here in New York, and he said, "We are not all right." And sitting in Israel with family and in a period of mourning, which we're still in many ways, he made it very proudful to come back to New York and to have leadership that actually talked about changing things and not cowering in the face of what was growing choruses of anti-Semitism. In many ways, that makes the mayor and Dr. Phil part of the Jewish community, because the Jewish community and the Jewish faith, unlike any other faith, do not accept things as they are. We are a religion that believe in the world as it ought to be. And I'm very proud to be seeing all of the Rabbanut and the rabbis here to be part of this discourse and solutions. It is not easy to be leading in the Jewish community today, just like it's not easy to be leading, period, today. But you are in the company of many that came before us, from Moshe Rabbeinu to Yirmiyahu to David HaMelech to Eliyahu to Jonah, and you are in the company to see the world as it should be versus as it is today. And I commend you all for being here, and we're looking forward to a very beautiful evening that has real teeth to it that you'll see. I wanted just to finish my remarks by saying just a small Tehillim, or a very short Tehillim, if you repeat after me. Hallelu et Adonai kol goyim shabechuhu kol haumim ki gavar aleinu chasdo Ve'emet Adonai Leolam. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord, all you nations. Extol him, all you peoples. For great is his steadfast love towards us. The faithfulness of the Lord endures forever. Hallelujah. We could do anything with his presence here tonight. Welcome.
Well, good evening. Aryeh, thank you so much for your comments. If anyone here doesn't know Aryeh, he is a man of deep devotion, integrity, and compassion. Look, in this world, there are givers and there are takers. And my dear friend Aryeh is the quintessential giver. He leads by example. He lives and works, putting family and friendship and community at the center of everything he does, always guided by core Jewish principles. So thank you so much for being here and doing this. I want to thank all of you rabbis and other clergy and distinguished supporters for your leadership and commitment to faith, community, and justice. It may seem pretty odd that I'm one of the loud voices advocating to stop the anti-Semitism in this country, and in fact, around the world. And I do feel sometimes like I'm standing pretty alone as a non-Jew defending Israel and its right to defend itself against murderous terror attacks. Because let's face it, I'm not a politician. I certainly don't understand geopolitical things. I'm just an old country boy from Texas and Oklahoma. I was raised a Baptist, actually, and I sure didn't sit in my sandbox as a child dreaming of one day growing up and fighting for Israel's right to exist and Jews' right to live. Hell, I was going to be a pilot. So why me? And I get asked that question probably more than any when I'm interviewed about this. Somewhere along the way, I just developed a real problem with bullies. I just did. Loudmouths, people trying to make right and wrong fuzzy and subjective and contextual. It is not. And there is such a great significance for all of us standing together during what I believe is a truly pivotal time of crisis, both in Israel and here in the United States, standing together against hate and evil and wrong. It is so important because things are spinning out of control. And there's great and important strength found in unity when you're confronting evil and defending human dignity. You know, Ben Gurion said it really well. He said, it's not so much what the haters and the anti-Semites say as it is what the rest of us, all of you do. It's not what they say, it's what we do. The October 7 attack and subsequent reaction to it brought into sharp focus the sickness that I think, from a psychological perspective, plagues modern society today. Despite the world witnessing with their own eyes, real-time video, the horrific violence, innocent lives murdered, families torn apart, children and elderly targeted and massacred, an attack of unspeakable atrocity that violates all moral and religious principles, acts of terror that cannot be justified under any circumstance, acts for which there is no moral equivalent. These were not acts of war, these were war crimes. And people see this and witness this, and it just reflects a societal sickness marked by a crippling lack of critical thinking. And we've got generations coming along who just haven't been taught to think critically, to ask questions, to verify. Your story goes a lot better if you're the only one telling it. And that's what's happening at our elite universities. We've got professors in there, we've got activists in there, we've got agitators in there, and they're telling kids one side of the story. I've talked to kids that don't know what the Holocaust is. I talked to one kid to ask if it was a type of hurricane. I said, yeah, in a way, I suppose you're probably righter than you think. I fear that it is just in vogue to simplify and organize the world into oppressors and the oppressed. And they've just decided, find an underdog that's got a story to tell and jump on that bandwagon. Don't do homework, don't ask questions, don't find out the real story. And I fear that's what has happened. But I've learned a lot about the Jewish faith. Angie Krause is one of my executive producers at Dr. Phil for 25 plus years and has taught me a lot about it over the years. We've done shows about this for years, back 15, 20 years ago. Jewish blood is sacred, and the community mourns every drop of innocent blood shed and every innocent life lost. You know, Hamas is an undeniably brutal terrorist organization. They have a long history of violence, hatred, rejection of peace, valuing death over life, rejecting peace, choosing instead invasion. Yet right here in our own New York City and around the globe, the murderer becomes the victim, even the hero. They're glorified for their anti-Semitic ideology and commitment to the destruction of Israel and the Jewish people. It's an upside-down world. Hamas is celebrated for the use of human shields, tunnels, propaganda to perpetrate violence and terror. They're celebrated for their failure to recognize the dignity and rights of human beings. They're celebrated for this. Where did we turn? Where did it go wrong? It's a higher form of insanity. We can complain about it, or in the alternative, I mentioned Ben Gurion earlier, he says, take action. And one undeniable unified voice that says enough is enough and too much is what needs to be heard. Enough is enough and too much is too much. You, me, together, we have the moral and religious responsibility to respond. Now look, some say religion and politics don't mix. I say you must all call on your congregations to stand in righteous opposition to the terrorism and hatred. I was talking to Prime Minister Netanyahu in Israel, and he told me during the Holocaust, he said, we as Jews did not have the ability, we did not have the wherewithal to rise up, to fight back, to self-protect. And when it was over, we said, never again. Never again. So we didn't have the ability to fight back then, but we do have the ability to fight back now. And so we shall. Judaism upholds the values of life and justice and peace. And as rabbis and community leaders, I call on you to join forces and to speak out boldly against terror, to speak out boldly against anti-Semitism. You know, I invited Mayor Eric Adams here tonight. I've known him for a while now. I can tell you from my heart, that man is not just your mayor, he is your brother. He and he alone, among those who seek to lead this great city, can say that. Your fight is his fight. As Aryeh said right after October 7th, he stood with you boldly, and he has stood with you every day since. Others sympathize and encourage the pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas, anti-Israeli, anti-Jewish activities on our elite university campuses. With Mayor Adams, your fight is his fight. With Mayor Adams, your struggle to be treated with dignity and respect is his struggle. He walks with you. Trust me, I've come to know this man, and he is our brother in arms here. He is our brother in standing up against anti-Semitism. New York City is the largest population of Jews on the planet outside of Israel. And you've got a mayor that stands with you. And God bless Mayor Adams for that. Israel has the right and moral imperative to exist and defend itself, and has done so while embracing the highest standard. Now, has the defensive effort been perfect and flawless? No, it has not. But they're engaged with an enemy that hides among civilians, hides among the infirm, hides among children. And it was Hamas who brought this down on Palestine, not Israel. It was Hamas. But I thank every one of you for your leadership and commitment. I thank you for your dedication to justice and peace and sanctity of life. I was just being interviewed before this, coming out here with a publication, and they said, what did you get from meeting Israelis? I've met them in Israel, I've met them here, I've talked to the hostage families, some who lost their loved ones, some who've gotten them back. And the thing that I come away from those meetings with is humility. Because I've never seen the kind of resilience, I've never seen the kind of dedication, I've never seen the strength of what the Jewish people endure. They say, what do you say about the post-traumatic stress syndrome that Jews are having to deal with? And I say there's nothing post about it. It's only post when it's over. And it isn't over for anybody that calls themselves a Jew. It's certainly not over for anybody that lives in Israel with missiles lobbed at them every day. But the resilience is inspiring. And I can tell you, I stand with you. And I am proud to stand with you, and I will stand with you until this is wiped out. Thank you so much. It is an honor. It is an honor to stand with the Jewish people. It is an honor to stand with Israel. Thank you.
Really want to thank Dr. Phil for his commitment. I believe there's no greater indicator than those who stand with others during their time of need, and that is what he has done. And we owe him a debt of gratitude to be of his level of prominence and stand tall on this issue, while others vacillate, even prominent members from the Jewish community. I say over and over again, as he stated, he's just a country boy from Texas. And I'm that same spirit of a country boy from Alabama. And we do not go about trying to find the right terms. We don't want to be intellectual and philosophical and theoretical and rationalize on why things happen. I have been clear since October 7th, and I'm clearer today. Hamas must be destroyed and every hostage must come home. And that is part of the problem. Part of the problem is we're trying to reason with terrorists. And when you see every day playing out on our college campuses, training our children how to agitate, training our children how to violate, training our children how to find reason to rationalize. How about trying something new on our college campuses? How about teaching them to be educated? How about going with the dream and aspiration of not to radicalize, but to normalize our ability to get along together and learn from each other? How about doing that? How about doing that? And so New York City is made up of many cultures. And there's a consistency of what I'm doing as your mayor and classifying you as your brother. It didn't start today. When I saw Sikh members being attacked, I stood with my Sikh brothers and sisters. When I saw those of the Muslim faith who were attacked for wearing the hijab, I stood with them. If it's a Buddhist community, I'm going to stand with them. When I saw someone desecrating the statues of the Catholic faith and of Christianity, I stood with them. I'm not going to remain silent when you see people of goodwill and good faith attacked. I will not remain silent. Lives are at stake, and we have no time to lose. I find it challenging to believe that if any other group was undergoing what the Jewish community is experiencing right now with the high level of percentage in anti-Semitism, if any other group would have been experiencing this, every page of the paper, every community group, every organizer will be all standing up for that group. So you cannot be sitting down now. It's time to stand up for our brothers and sisters who are enduring this. I want to call Ron to the stage to say a few words and thank him for his resiliency.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ron Segev, and I'm a Nova survivor. First of all, I want to say that it's not fair that I need to speak after these two great people. And I want to take Dr. Phil's advice and say thank you, brother. I appreciate everything you're doing for us. I want you to try to draw a picture in your mind now. I want to take you to a moment of my survival. I was with my brother. We had plenty of encounters with terrorists on October 7th. And in one of the moments, we were hiding behind one of the abandoned cars in the open fields, and the terrorists were shooting the other side of the car. Somehow, with a lot of help and miracles, we managed to get out of the situation. We found the car, and eventually we also drove back towards the heavy fire to save more people. And I'm telling you that because I think that probably none of you have ever experienced anything like that. But that's what happened that day, and that's what happened so many times in Israel. And unfortunately now we can see during the last few weeks so many attacks on the Jewish people. And again, I want to say thank you for all your support, Mayor Adams. And I want to say one more thing. I think that it's time for all the leaders around the US and around the world to step up and make sure that the Jewish people around the US and around the world will feel safer, because I see how things change for the bad, for the worst, and we need your help. It's time to be brave and to choose to be on the right side of history. Thank you, everyone.
So just all of you, thank you for being here and engaging in this conversation.
This room has such a wonderful vibe in it, doesn't it? I mean, everybody here, and I can't thank everybody enough. Everybody gets out of their homes and drives over here and sits down to talk about this, and people are thanking me, and I'm thanking all of you, because this is a great privilege for me to have this opportunity and this audience. And you know, I said earlier that when we decided we were going to have this event and talk about the solidarity, I came to you and asked you if you would join in and be part of this, because I admire so much what you're doing in this city to fight anti-Semitism. And my first question for you is, where do you think this comes from? This didn't start October 7th. This has been going on for a long, long time in America and in New York City. we've just seen a big upswing in it. And you would think it would go to zero after October 7th, but it didn't. It almost immediately started accelerating. What do you think's behind that?
I think that's a great question, and you're right. We saw what Nazi Germany did to Poland. We saw what happened across the globe. We saw just some areas of anti-Semitism that was taking place globally. What I believe is the difference of today. We've always had hate. We always had racism. We always had Islamophobia. We always had anti-Sikhism. What has happened, I believe, is that hate has been able to unify through social media. Because if we had a racist that lived on our block, they were known just on the block. Now social media has created almost a coming together of hatred, and people who hate are able to mobilize each other. We see what happens every day. A simple tweet that goes out that you can mobilize the entire city to do something hateful. And we saw what happened after October 7th, where immediately those who took to the streets celebrating what Hamas did, calling themselves Hamas, and those terminology. Social media is playing a major role on the spreading of hate, and we must combat it and compel that they are held accountable for what they're doing.
Yes. I think you're right about the social media part of it. You could have some deranged individual in the middle of some rural area a generation ago, and he could spew his hatred, and it might go as far as half a dozen mouth breathers hanging around the gas station or something, but it didn't spread.
Right.
It didn't have any fuel. It didn't have any gas. But now it's estimated that right now, as we sit here tonight, that there are between 5,000 and 10,000 active cults in America right now. And you think, well, how could that possibly be? Well, it's because they're on the internet. And you have people that are disenfranchised, people that the number one need in all people is acceptance. That's the number one need. Everybody, the number one need in all people is acceptance, and there's synonyms for that, like belongingness. Success is another word for acceptance, because if say you're in business or you're an entertainer or something and you're successful, that means people are accepting you and what you have to offer. The number one fear is predictably rejection. And so you get these people that are on the fringe, and you start spewing out these extreme views, and the only price of admission to be part of that group is that you align with their views. You don't have to be tall, short, fat, skinny, clean. You can smell funny. It doesn't matter. All you have to do is agree with their ideology, and you're in, you belong. And so it's a race to the bottom.
Right.
And you know, I hear people sometimes, they'll hear kids that are raised by KKK parents, and you hear these kids spewing this hatred, and you go, my God, how could they possibly have that kind of hatred at 7 or 8, 9 years old? Think about it. There are some genetics, but largely we write on the slate of who these young people are by the experiences that we provide them. And if it's all they've ever heard,
That's right.
if it's all that you're writing on that slate, it's who they're going to be. That's what happens with Hamas when they start training these kids in first and second grade to hate Jews and celebrate the death of Jews, and teaching them to army crawl with weapons and all that sort of thing. And that's what I'm saying is happening in our universities today, when all of this ideology is being taught, and no one is there to say, can you support that?
Right.
Can you back that up? Do you have any empirical evidence to suggest that? And the answer is no, 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 and hell no. They don't. They just don't. But nobody's challenging it. And that's why I say, if we rise up with a unified voice, if we teach the young people in synagogue and in classes and educate them as to what's going on, and the most powerful role model in any child's life are the same-sex parent, and the second most powerful role model is the other sex parent. And then you start down a list of trusted adults from there. If we role model what we want and we speak with one voice in a unified way, we can change this in a generation. We can change this in a generation.
I agree. No, and we can. And we must change it in a generation. And then when you think about it, as you just laid out, and you bring that together with what I just stated about social media, you say our college campuses and our young people. Although adults like you and I are on social media, our children live on social media.
Yeah.
We would get our news and our thoughts from critically analyzing, but now what's being placed on social media, they look and flip through. They live through sound bites. They live through these images. And that is what's on our college campuses. And we have normalized anti-Semitism on our college campuses. When you go to college, you state you want to socialize. Imagine not being able to be in a group because you weren't at the last protest, or you didn't admit to say you want to be like Hamas. So all of those indicators that are on college campuses that will state your college experience is going to be a joyful experience by participating in the socialization. Now that socialization has turned into, if you don't fit into a certain criteria, you're no longer going to be part of the in crowd. And that's challenging when you are a college student, so this is your first time away from college.
Yeah, and can you imagine a Jewish student on campus where they're encircling you and won't let you walk to your classes? I was on UCLA's campus when they took down the pro-Palestinian encampments there, and I was interviewing Jewish students there. And I went to the Hallel that day. I spoke to them then. I went on to campus. I went to the encampment. And by the way, this encampment on UCLA, some of you have probably been on UCLA campus, huge. And this encampment is hundreds of yards encircling it with 3/4-inch plywood. Now, how many of you as a student could afford $75 a sheet plywood? I mean, I was making tomato soup out of ketchup and hot water from the tea machine at Golden Corral Steakhouse. But they've got $75 to buy 300 sheets of 3/4-inch plywood. Listen, this is coming from somewhere else.
Without a doubt.
This is being poured in there.
Right.
And that's why Hamas refers to them as useful idiots. But they don't know they're being referred to as useful idiots because, as you point out, the only place they're getting their information is off of social media, and nobody fact checks it. You just put it on there. I saw it on the internet. Well, it must be right.
Right. No, well said. Now think about it. First of all, where Harvard failed and any school fails is the first time the first plywood went up should have been removed. And it was problematic for us when we communicated to our colleges, because we can't go onto a college campus without permission from the colleges, and they waited far too long. And as you stated, the taking down of those encampments, the proudest moment for me was when now Deputy Mayor Kaz Daughtry took down the Palestinian flag from over our schools and put the American flag back up to send the wrong signal. You can't allow that to happen in our country.
Well, and here's the thing. If the only place you're getting your information is not fact-checked and it's being programmed, there's an algorithm. I put up things pro-Israeli, fighting anti-Semitism. I put things on and the algorithm chokes it down. I've got like 25 million followers on social media. And some people have hundreds of millions, but I've got a few. And you think, well, so you put something up, it'll get to them, right?
Right.
Wrong. No, because the algorithm goes in and chokes down what they don't want put out there. And the information is that this is not what they're interested in. They're interested in other things, so we choke that down. And it's insane that we're allowing this to happen in America. And listen, I'm a big believer in free speech. And as has been said by someone much more eloquent than me, you say that which you detest the most.
That's right.
But let me tell you, you're not talking free speech when you're putting your and defacing a building that all of us pay for. That's when it crosses the line, and that's when it needs to step up.
Okay. 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 Is so significant because we need to be, clarity is important. And I think is who consider themselves to be allies to fight against hate. You cannot remain silent now, and you have to be very, again, with the largest Jewish population outside of Israel, and we have our young people walking. When you look at what the actions of Hamas and Hezbollah and some of the actions of terrorist organizations, and the lack of what you were stating, Dr. Phil, of educated, they don't realize that Hamas, they're killing their own people. Using innocent people as human shields. And many people who are marching in the streets here in New York, if they would be marching in the streets in a coffin there because of their actions that they're doing.
Exactly.
Here.
Exactly.
You know, there's been, I believe, a biased coverage of some of the anti-Semitism that we have been witnessed. And I'm just curious, I would love for Dr. Ruth to, talk about
Please.
The whole, the press, how's it covered of Ahmadiyya has been a powerful voice for so many years, and you're almost having to push through to get the proper, accurate coverage, and I would like to get your thought.
Thank you. Thank you for being you, and thank you. I am a proud child of 2 Holocaust survivors, and I see fight against anti-Semitism as a life mission. I see what we established in Project Witness close to 30 years ago as a life mission. And we can attest to it, what's going on in the media, what's going on in social media, what's going on in the old-fashioned media. And more than that, what we have learned in Project Witness is that our main problem today is what's going on in the public school system, not only in universities. We got the complaints from students who came to cry, they're afraid for their lives. Teachers, public school teachers, who are afraid for their lives and for their jobs. And we feel from our experience that this is the main things that we have to do today. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but this is the truth. Whatever we accomplish, and we continue to work and to do, whatever we accomplished was because the support, the understanding, and the sensitivities that we got from you, Mayor Adams, and your staff. And we hope to continue. We will continue to fight. We understand that we have to work with everyone. We are ready, and we do work with the African American community, with the Muslim community. Wherever we can, we go. We need help, and we hope that, with his help and with down-to-earth help, we will continue to do. It's easy? No, but it's part of the reality.
So thank you so much. And no, it's not easy. And we do things that are hard because they are hard and they're the right things to do.
Marquaz, you founded 1,000 Strong, and you talk to a lot of young people. What do you think about what we're saying here, and what do you think is the most important priority for people to take away from a meeting like tonight?
Well, first off, you guys both look great in a kippah. You should keep that look. After October 7th, there was a deafening silence. I was in Israel in a bomb shelter, and every politician and university president, they were silent. They were polling, would it be popular? And the day after, Mayor Adams came forward and said, "You're my brother, I stand with you." What's important for me, what causes anti-Semitism, I have no idea. My great-grandparents were murdered in Auschwitz. My grandmother was an Auschwitz survivor. My parents are here. I don't have these answers. You probably do, Dr. Phil, though. What I do know is we need leaders that protect the Jewish community here in New York City. At our events for 1,000 Strong, I could send a text message to Richie Taylor. He's the highest ranking NYPD commissioner. He's the Jewish Tom Cruise is what I call him. And when I text him, I say, we're having an event with 1,200 prominent young Jews. The next moment, there are 5 NYPD squad cars. There are the dogs coming and sniffing around, and Mayor Adams shows up and speaks. That is support. That is leadership. And that's what we need in New York City. That's my message, and it's such a pleasure. And to be here with you, Dr. Phil, is really an honor. I told my parents they came from far and wide, and we need leaders that are gonna stand with New York City. What Mayor Adams does is much more than words. He's a great speaker, but it's much deeper than that, and we need leaders that stand on business. You're not gonna come in and slap a hostage pin, and you'll make us think that you're on our side. Mayor Adams has been there from day one.
Thank you. Thank you. Some of us saw the videos of how horrific. Many people did not see the actual videos of what happened at the Nova concert. And when you see the videos, you know the pain of losing a family member and a loved one. And, I think no one personifies that more than Devorah and, and your fight. And so, when you see what's playing out now, how do you feel we could do more and should do more?
Well, first of all, thank you both again. And Mayor Adams, you're part of my family and my extended family. You have been with us from my son was murdered in 1994 in the most egregious anti-Semitic act in New York. 15 children in a van shot up by a Hamas member. Having said that, I've dedicated my life in building the Jewish Children's Museum, where we educate kids are not born with hate, and we know we have to teach them when they're very young. You spoke to that point, Dr. Phil, about the Hamas, which I've seen thousands of them, where they teach little children straight out of their mother's womb about the hate. We teach the children in the Jewish Children's Museum. It's a living and breathing space. We bring in kids from all walks of life, from all ethnicities, and I think that that is probably the most important thing, because once you get to a certain point where they're college age, you miss the boat. We need a grasp, take those kids, build new leaders, new generations of healthy-minded people who accept others who may not look like them, but deserve to live in this universe as each other. And so I want to thank you all, and especially my dear mayor, he's been with me, not only visiting my son at his gravesite, but with my family. We've spent many, many, many hours. He was probably, Ari's case is the first terrorist attack in New York City that we've seen. And since then, sadly, it's gotten much worse. I'm 5th generation American. So I can't believe that I'm living in this time and place. But we will never give up, because we're a people who survive. And we need friends like yours to help us along with that. Thank you very much.
Talking about never giving up. Using our profession to fight anti-Semitism, Brother Castellan, why don't you talk about your lawsuit, what motivated you, with the lawsuit?
Sure. So we filed a lawsuit against Harvard pertaining to their obvious civil rights violations against Jewish students. Harvard filed 2 separate motions to dismiss with prejudice, meaning they were asking a judge not only to toss out our lawsuit, but to set a legal precedent so that no Jew in the future could hold them accountable for anti-Semitism. Our judge, Judge Richard Stearns of the Federal District Court of Massachusetts, he issued a 25-page scathing ruling against Harvard, writing in part, quote, "The facts as pledged show Harvard failed its Jewish students." He tossed out their motion to dismiss, and we became the first case in American history pertaining to the civil rights violations of Jews on a campus to actually go to trial. And our case has already been cited as legal precedent in a half-dozen cases brought by Jewish students across the country, Cooper Union, Cornell, UCLA, Yale, and that is a direct result of Jewish students really being sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that really brings me to why I'm here, because I have a flight at 9:30 and I'm probably going to miss it at this point. But it was really important I came here because I'm going to sort of speak to the people here. Because many of us are scared of, quite rightly, of Zoran Mandani, many of us feel that we are forced to endorse someone who we don't actually support. And I just want to say that in Judaism, we have the concept of hakara satov, of showing gratitude. And I'm telling you, as someone who was a student, who was on campus when things were bad, there were lots of policymakers and lots of candidates who said many, many things. But then there was Eric Adams, who didn't say things, he showed up and he did things. And I want you to know, irrespective of what some of the leadership in our community might decide in the coming days, and I know many, many young people know what you did for us. And come November, we certainly have your back. That's for sure.
Thank you.
Well, let me ask a question from some of you rabbis here. I went through this in the presidential election and did research, and religious community, congregants, are reluctant to vote. They just don't turn out. And I'm curious if y'all find that true with your synagogue, with your congregants, and why you think that's true and what we have to do to change that. Because I'm telling you, I'm not a politician. I focus on culture. And people say, well, you seem to be talking about politics on Dr. Phil Primetime a lot. No, the politicians are talking about cultural issues. I'm not talking about political issues. They're talking about cultural issues. But I did the research, and this in New York City is down to them versus us with regard to anti-Semitism. I said there is one candidate in this race, and this is a shameless plug, and I don't mean to embarrass you. He probably couldn't care. But there is one candidate that I see in this race that is not a Johnny-come-lately, has, from the time he was a street cop in the borough, has stood with the Jewish community, and it's coming down now to you're either going to have an anti-Semitic mayor or you're going to have a brother that stands with you in your faith and fights it. So how do we mobilize all of your congregants to get out and control this race?
If you look at the last couple of elections, I think we're getting better. We were pretty much mobilized, especially if you look at the presidential election. You look at Brooklyn across, Brooklyn North, Brooklyn South, Crown Heights. We had almost close to 75,000 people voting in Brooklyn, the city of New York, from the Orthodox Jewish people. And we were blamed for being the red voters. If you look at the spots between Brooklyn North and Brooklyn South, because there was a lot of the Republican voters. And the reason was for that because appreciation. We do appreciate when somebody does good for the community. And we didn't forget, and we'll never forget, when President Trump, on his first term, he helped a lot of our brothers, especially from Crown Heights, Reb Ashkin, he forgave him. And also what he did for all the Jewish people across the world, we will never forget. And people came out very strongly to show appreciation. And in November, you'll see the same thing. With God's help, we will come out and show our great support for our great mayor and brother, Eric Adams. I also want to emphasize, I want to just add to what you told us before you started, that anti-Semitism did not start on October 7. You are 100% right. Our grandfathers, this has been going on for hundreds and thousands of years. Sometimes we've been suffering in silence. Sometimes it's a little more obvious. I remember in my career, I started about 25 years ago being a leader in the Jewish community. I had my own experience upstate New York, here, not in Germany. I went and I walked into a town hall supervisor, Sullivan County. I'm not going to mention his name now. And he called me out, "You Jew," with the nicknames to it, with all the 4 letters. "What are you doing in my office? Get the hell out of here." I didn't believe it, but it happened. He turned around later after. We became friends. I explained to him who we are and what we are. This is to thank our mayor that he stood up, not from the last 3 years as mayor, but we go back 20-something years from when he became a police officer, state senator, borough president, and mayor. He was always with us, and we always appreciate. So I want to bring to your attention, Mr. Mayor, what you don't know, and this is important for you to know. This has been, in Williamsburg, as you mentioned before, the largest population in New York City outside of Israel is the Jewish community. Some of this population live where I live in Williamsburg. For the past, I think, 3 decades, more than 25 years, there is no Jew officially allowed to get any public housing. It's not, when you look at a person or a family eligibility to get a housing, an apartment, it's not how much he earns, how many kids. It's if he's Jewish, it's an X. Here in Brooklyn, in Williamsburg. If you look around in the Bronx, in Queens, there's no Jews, not too much over there in the public housing, whatever. But they claim that percentage, we're too much already. We cannot get a housing for anyone still today in New York City. And I know this wasn't the mayor, this is NYCHA in the bigger picture. But if you're going to read in the book, you'll think this is in the 1930s in Germany. It's today, Brooklyn.
Shocking.
And I'll give you an example. We had a meeting last week with a beautiful couple, high 20s to 30. The mother is blind, father is deaf, legally, 2 beautiful children. Us leaders, we work very hard for a couple of years to get him into public housing. He lives in a private apartment building, 5th floor, no elevator. The mother, blind, fell a couple of times, broke her legs, broke her hand. Nothing. You're Jewish. You can't get it. It's officially. So I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor. When something like this happens and we bring it to your attention, right away he jumps on it, and you're making sure to be part of the community and make sure that this is being stopped. It's not easy because it's not your lone local. Same, we got to your attention about the DOE. Right. We're being targeted, blamed, and bashed. Education. Right away, we called Mr. Mayor. He said, I'll be on top of it. So the ask is, first, thank you for everything you do, but there's a long way to go.
Yes.
It's always starting by the top. We are being targeted by the top from Department of Education within the state and the city, not only in Israel, not Hamas, not only over here, local. So I'm thanking you for taking the lead, for being a friend, and we'll always remember this and we'll be with you.
So
Thank
true. The goal is, I think that I am probably a symbol, when people give accolades to the work we've done for years, but it's a symbol of what we expect from our elected leaders. It's a symbol of that. And that is what's important about this community. You should really be taking roll call right now on who is standing up. And when people say that I've always been there, it's because this community has always been there. You go back from the days of Julius Rosenwald, the almost 4,000 schools he opened in the Deep South and educated at one time almost 40% of the Black population in the Deep South. He was one of the co-founders to Howard University, a university that's dear to the hearts of African Americans. One of the co-founders of the NAACP, other religious institutions. And not too far from here in the Bronx, we lost 2 young men that went down to the Deep South and they were murdered with an African-American student. They were Jewish. And during the civil rights movement, the students that went down from college campuses to protest against the Mississippi crises that we were having, 51% of the student population that went down were Jewish students. So there's a long relationship of the Jewish community not only being side by side with the Black movement here in America, but with movements of all groups. They understood clearly that never again did not mean just to the Jewish community. It meant that no one should go through horrific conditions. And that's why I line up with saying I'm one of the partners of saying never again, but living never again.
You know, and I know we're running short on time, so we've got to stop, but I think, at least in my lifetime, people have asked me what I think in my lifetime were the most important days in America's history. And a lot of people say 9/11, and I say 9/12. I say 9/12 was one of the most important days in American history. We all know what happened on 9/11, but on 9/12, we woke up and we were all Americans. It's like everything went away. It didn't matter if you were Democrat, Republican, Black, white, Jew, whatever. Everybody woke up that morning and said, okay, we're all Americans and we stand together. And I think October 7th was a Jewish 9/11. And I think October 8th was that 9/12. And I think what happens in New York City in November is going to define whether everybody stands together and unifies and says, we take back New York City. We take back New York City. And I haven't interviewed these other candidates. They don't want to talk to me, surprisingly. They don't want to talk to me. So when I say that I think there's only one in this race that is not anti-Semitic, I haven't talked to them. They haven't told me they're anti-Semitic. They would deny that to the end of the earth. But I look where they come down on the college campus issues. I look where they come down on Columbia University. I look where they come down on what's happening with aid to Palestine and where they vote in the United Nations with regard to Israel and the right to defend itself. I look at how they comment on those things, and it speaks volumes. The dots are very close together. You can connect them with a bright red line, and it's apparent to me, just as your record is apparent to me. And look, the difference between winners and losers is winners do things losers don't want to do. And if we want this to come out right, we got to do things losers don't want to do. And that may mean making phone calls, getting people engaged, getting them involved. As the rabbi here says, they have with 75,000 people coming out in that regard. This is crunch time. And I grew up in athletics, and my coach always told me big-time players make big-time plays at big times. It's time to make big-time plays for a big-time player, and that's what I think needs to happen. And as for me, they're not going to shut me up. I'm going to keep, and I watch myself on film sometimes and say, my God, man, spit it out. I mean, you talk so slow sometimes being from Texas, but I'm going to keep fast or slow. I'm going to keep saying what I'm saying because, you know, life is precious. Our families are precious. Our future is precious. And it's ours to lose. We've got to model love. We've got to live with love. And we've got to take this back. We've got to shut down this anti-Semitism. We've got to say, not here, not now, not tomorrow. Enough is enough and too much is too much. And we're at that threshold now. That's all I've got.
Yes, sir. Dr. Phil, cannot thank you enough for being here. A real true voice.
Thank you so much. Mayor Adams, thank you. Thank you, everybody.